Welcome back to the David Pakman Show. Joining me is Bill Scher from liberaloasis.com and Campaign for America's Future. Bill was recently filling in for Lewis, and some people may be surprised to see him back so soon, but he had the great accomplishment of having an editorial published in the New York Times on Sunday. And the editorial is interesting because, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, I would paraphrase it as saying, you make the case that maybe Democrats should, as opposed to criticizing the effect of corporate influence on politics, embrace it and do everything they can to get corporations to help push progressive politics. Am I somewhat close on that?
Close. I wouldn't put it quite like that. It's not that I'm saying that corporate influence is awesome, and we should praise it. I'm saying let's be big boys and girls and recognize that it is. It exists. It has always existed, and the great liberal achievements have been done by presidents who looked that straight in the eye and did hard bargaining with corporations and didn't go into it saying, I need to extinguish this or eliminate it. Because when presidents who have tried to do that, not only do they lose the battle, but they often lose the war too. And I think in particular, Bill Clinton in healthcare and Jimmy Carter and energy, when they tried to just take on those corporate interests head on, they not only didn't get the bills that they wanted, but they sapped their own political capital. They scared off other politicians from dealing with that issue for more than a decade. And they crippled their own ability to implement other progressive reforms because they were so damaged. Whereas when you look at FDR and LBJ, even though we tend to talk about them as if they never budged an inch, in fact, there are several instances where they cut deals with corporations to get their foot in the door, move the ball forward, and that helped build momentum for more progressive reform over time.
Right. Well, you talk about New Deal legislation and the United States Chamber of Commerce playing at least playing a role in that. The thing I would question, though, is a lot of these organizations, the Chamber of Commerce is an interesting one, specifically that organization, I don't know that today you're going to be able to get them to help push any kind of legislation that those on the left would be interested in because that organization itself has changed.
Well, I agree that they've probably changed, but not only did the Chamber of Commerce help FDR pass his Recovery Act, they helped Obama pass his Recovery Act. I mean, and look, there are compromises made in the Recovery Act. There were more business tax cuts that perhaps you and I would want to have seen. You can make a case that it made for a weaker bill. You can make the case that FDR's Recovery Act was weaker because of the concessions he made to the chamber back then. But we were certainly better off that they got done. And the risk of not having that corporate support and having unified corporate opposition is the risk that you don't get a bill at all. And if you didn't have any kind of Recovery Act for the first 100 days, or you didn't have a Recovery Act in Obama's first 100 days, those situations might have been a whole lot different than what we're seeing today.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree with the content of the editorial. My question, though, is more one of, is it politically even feasible to say, well, I think the influence of corporations and money in politics is really, really bad, and I would like to see it eliminated. But for now, instead of working towards that, I'm just going to do everything I can to get whatever benefit I can from the fact that corporations and money are a huge influence on politics. In other words, is it possible to straddle the line, both to use it to your advantage for now, but work to eliminate the influence of money in politics, or do you have to just pick one strategy or the other?
It's not necessarily an either or. My concern and one of the motivations of writing the piece is that we were going too far the other way, that people on the left have gotten so frustrated and so cynical that they're saying this system is fundamentally broken. Nothing we want is going to happen until we find a way to eradicate the Citizens United ruling, which the only way you can really do that is through a constitutional amendment. You can try doing some other workarounds, but they probably won't get you very far. And if you have that attitude that there's something uniquely awful about today that wasn't true with FDR and LBJ, one, I think you're historically wrong. I mean, look, FDR and LBJ said there wasn't even any campaign finance regulations whatsoever, really. There's plenty of money in politics back then, and FDR and LBJ found a way. So if we put all our emphasis on that and ignore the possibility, I would say a pretty decent possibility of finding common ground on climate change, on immigration, and on infrastructure investment and job creation, all areas where I'd argue there has been significant groundwork laid for such a compromise. If you put that aside and chase the constitutional amendment, look, that is a multi-decade-long project. And certain issues, particularly the jobs crisis and climate, you don't got time to wait. So you got to find a way to take the bullet, get the bargaining leverage. I mean, we don't have to roll over here.
Let's say you're right, and we explore going more after the support of corporations. Don't you think that particularly because of the fiscal policies that Republicans support, that if both parties just say, let's just both go after the support of corporations, Republicans are going to win most of those battles?
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
So in other words, the policies that Republicans propose or that support when it comes to finances are much more attractive to most big corporations than those of progressives. So while you cite historically a number of times that progressive movements have been able to get the support of corporations, aren't Republicans just going to win that support, take it away from Democrats? In other words, given the choice, why wouldn't corporations support Republican policy more than Democratic policy?
Well, this is the annoying part of what I'm suggesting here. Even when FDR found common ground with corporations,
right?
Even when LBJ found common ground with corporations, they didn't stick with them. Corporations didn't say thank you very much. Let's do this again sometime.
Exactly.
They tend to stab you in the back afterwards. It's very irritating. I don't dispute that. So you can't do this in a naive way and think that they're going to be your best friends. They're not. But if you come at it with the attitude of there is no way I'm ever going to find an opening to piece together the coalition that's going to actually get the bill enacted, I think you're going to miss out on some big opportunities. And Clinton missed an opportunity by not sending out the insurance industry. The insurance industry was asking for meetings, and they weren't getting them. And then they said, "Fine, forget it. We're going to dump Harry and Louise on you," and they just blew that deal apart. And Obama had a different approach, saying, I know we don't get along necessarily. I know we have a lot of bad blood between my party and your industry, but let's find a way. And I think we're all better off because there might be things in the bill you don't like, things that I don't like, things I think are imperfect. But the key thing is it's better to do that imperfect deal and build on over time, which usually is what happens, than to be totally rigid. And because in that case, you tend to wait for a very, very long time until you get back to the table. And once you do, you got to cut the deal anyway. Yeah,
as we saw with healthcare, perfect example, which you cite in the piece. Okay, Bill Scher, liberaloasis.com, Campaign for America's Future. I'm very split about this editorial, I have to say. I mean, the points you're making are really good. There's just something that to a lot of progressives will feel wrong about trying to work hand in hand with corporations.
I'm not saying it's fun. I'm not saying you'll feel good about doing it.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Take care.
We'll take a break, be back with more after this.